You want to do the intro? Or you want me to do an intro?
Oh, you go for it, dude. You do it.
Oh.
You give it.
Hello, everybody. We're back again. It's been, I don't know how long. When did we record the last episode? I feel like in the summer.
I could go check, but I feel like I don't want to.
It's probably in like July or August.
Oops.
It's been a while. We've been busy, being streamers,
procrastinating,
playing games,
the
chilling.
usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, streamers' lives are so hard. Harder than a 9 to 5. That's what I've been told. That's what the word on the street says.
Yeah, the whole argument recently. Have you actually seen that on Twitter of like
I saw
like
somebody say it. I didn't watch any sort of
Playboy
clip.
Max said that a 9 to 5 is not as hard as streaming because of the stress that is accompanied by doing social media, which isn't a bad point.
I don't think
but
that's
I
the
still
way to
disagree that
explain it.
Streaming. Oh, you're muted now. All right, I think you hit the mute button.
Oh, my bad. Let me turn that off. I think I hit something on my mouse. Hold on. Let me disable that. Whoops. Well, that'll stay on the recording. Everybody's just gonna be like, "What?
what was that?
What do you mean?" At least I didn't deafen myself, and I'm like, "Bro,
Yeah.
where'd you go?" Anyway,
You just couldn't hear me or couldn't speak. But I still don't think a 9 to 5 is.
it's
I don't
definitely not
think a
hard.
9 to 5 is
It's
easier.
definitely harder. It's definitely harder.
Yeah. I think
I think it's a decent point to make. The stress of social media with this job is a very valid point to say why it's hard. I don't think saying it's harder than like having to get up at like 7:45 to get ready for work to like give people fast food who are going to be either annoyingly ungrateful or like rude out of nowhere, like all that stuff. I don't think this is harder than dealing with like food service like customers or
I think
stuff
the
like that at all.
I think the downsides are unique on both, right?
Yeah.
But
that's what everything.
Accompanying the fact that you can make your own schedule, you're your own boss, and the lucrativeness of doing social media outweighs any of the negatives that accompany it that might make it harder than a 9 to 5.
That is typically what I said. I think that when I've been asked about this question or similar, I've always said that like the pros and cons are so unique to this job, but like the cons are, I'm much more willing to deal with the cons of this job than a different one, ultimately.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would say is if I really do love what I do, but if I made the salary of somebody that works at Wendy's doing what I do,
it would be harder.
It would be a harder decision to choose to do this. Just because when you're done, like the only benefit that I've always envisioned as a 9 to 5 is when you're done work, you're done work, right? Like here,
this job is.
It's just just because it's the same thing as running a business. It's like you basically are just always doing something, regardless of whether or not you have active hours. Like some of my chatters are like, "Dude, you only stream 4.5 hours a day." I'm like, that's not the only. I don't just hop on stream, hop off, and then I'm done. Right? Like
some people really do, and like I respect it, but there's a lot of like, ultimately, a lot of mental gymnastics end up occurring within this job. And while I don't agree that it's harder than a 9 to 5, it definitely brings a lot of stress that I can relate to and understand. And it does make it a stressful job in and of itself. I don't think it's equatable to a regular 9 to 5 job, especially because a lot of the benefits of doing this successfully are really flattering. Which I think combats against the cons a decent amount. But
which is also why I think the people that ever say like I don't think Playboy Max was sitting there complaining about his job.
I don't think so.
It always comes off that like if you're ever like a 9 to 5's
it's hard to complain
than what
about
I
this job.
do. Yeah,
it's hard.
because it's like, well, dude, you make, however much a year, 10 times what an average person makes, 20 times what an average person makes. So
it's hard to complain about this job because it's such a luxurious position that like when there is a valid complaint, people are basically like, shut up because your life's easier, which is in a way understandable, because ultimately like we have much less to complain about than a lot of people, and I'm personally very grateful for that, which is why I feel like I try to complain as little as I can about this sort of stuff, because I'm just happy to be here. But it does suck when like another creator is very like, I need to get this off my chest, and people are kind of like, okay, dude, like,
and like basically tell them to like, and I don't think just because you do social media doesn't mean there should be no room to complain about certain things.
Yeah, I mean, people deserve to have like valid complaints about their lives. I mean, just because we're in a better position doesn't mean we don't get to like be able to say about things that are difficult. Like I'm not saying we should get to talk about it all the time, because once again, I feel like we're in a better spot than a lot of people, and like I'm appreciative and try to like think about that more than about the difficulties. But stuff eats at you, man. Like people need to talk about problems they have. That's why therapy exists. That's why like people confide in their partners, because like people need a listening ear, and sometimes they go to social media, but sometimes people don't like that.
Well, I think the listening ear of being social media as well can be good, but it's also, I mean, we planned on talking about, the election and everything just because it recently happened, and I think it kind of coincides in the sense of
you play with fire a little bit.
Social media is a great space to find people that have similar opinions and problems as you. And it feels very comforting, but the downside of that is then it literally just gives you that and that's all, and it just separates you entirely from the other group, right? Or other groups that may exist.
Well, social media is fantastic at like letting us see exactly what we need to hear at this point. Like algorithms are built so good. I'm saying good as in like the purpose, not whether it's a good thing or not, but like the ability for an algorithm to like validate how you feel on purpose to get you to like stay and keep talking about it because they want you to just stay and be like money is like unfortunately very effective. And like this is a whole thing that I want to talk about within the election talk as well, because like the funding of the Republican Party to like push a lot of this like ideology onto young men is like was such an effective strategy for this election that like it's hard to it's hard for me to not like just the amount of effort put into the fear-mongering young men, like the idea that like we're having like all of these things threatened and all of these stuff.
And we're
like,
losing ground.
We're losing ground in a space that is small, but that's not true. Like all of this like fear mongering, because like men have such high insecurities. Like I feel like women deal with so many more insecurities and so much more scrutinizing, but the insecurities that like a regular like guy gets hammered into their brain out of like social expectation are so heavy that like a lot of the right-wing media this time around and continuing, like they emphasize these insecurities of like being like, you're not being a man, like you're not being desirable, you're not being wanted, like people don't like you anymore, like your rights are being taken away, all this stuff because of a thing that's not even happening, essentially. Like the insecurities of men are so like preyable, if that makes sense. Like
it's
clearly
it's easy to make young men, specifically young white men, feel divided against a common enemy or something like that, right? I always say the Republican Party's main goals is to give tax breaks on the rich and privatize businesses, right? Those are their goals in the political societal system.
I have
everything after that is to try and pull people to get them votes so they can accomplish those two things. Because if they just have those two goals, no one's going to fucking vote for them.
Because ultimately, people just vote for their party anyway. I mean, you see it with this election. The Democratic Party tried so hard to appeal to this like middle ground voter that they're convinced existed, that they employed the same strategy they did with Clinton that didn't work out, because they're like convinced they can just convince people to like switch sides. And it's like, you still get these exit polls in the battleground states where 95% of each party voted for themselves anyway. Like that doesn't work.
But if you compare the Obama election from 2008 and the counties that he won to 2024 and the counties Trump won, there is no one talks about it. But there is, or shocking or believable or not, there are people that change their vote from Republican to Democrat or Democrat to Republican every other election, depending on who appeals to them. And why Trump did so well is he made middle-class white people in rural areas feel heard for the problems that they have, like expensive groceries and gas and more economic things rather than societal stuff that, in all honesty, they don't really give a fuck about, because it's not going to ever concern them because they live in a town of 500 people, right?
Yep.
And winning those votes over the broad scheme of things gets him every single swing state and every single election that he needs.
I said this on stream or one of my TikToks I said about it, but like the whole thing is like right now people are worried about what they're spending and how much they're spending or how much they might spend. And that's all he had to say. And it's like, when some guy is like this, so many people just want to be like told that it's going to be fine and it's going to be taken care of. And that's essentially, I mean, in his own weird way, that's essentially what he did. Whether he's going to do
feel
that,
related. Like they like that Trump made them feel heard in the sense of the problems they had. But the issue that I never understand is nobody looks past that and goes, well, this guy's a fucking billionaire that doesn't have the same problems. At all. Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about like Jimmy Carter's presidency or something, but Jimmy Carter was a fucking peanut farmer that did relate to the individuals that were voting for him, right? Donald Trump has always been rich. He's a Nepo baby at birth. He's always had success. And even when he did it in 1990, when his business failed, he switched things up, which made him more successful now by, instead of relying on businesses, he relies on his name. Trump is a brand. He doesn't own businesses. Trump is a brand. Trump sells his name. Trump does everything. When The Apprentice started, when all those businesses started, he made hundreds of millions of dollars off that show and off of the things that came after that. People like the idea of Trump, not what him as a businessman is going to accomplish, right?
Or even him as a Republican.
Yeah.
They just like him. And he's unfortunately, to give credit, he's so good at conning. Like he has figured out this formula of basically telling people in this like manipulative fashion that like he can figure it out, even though he was in charge for 4 years and he quite literally did not figure it out. If you know about like how presidential billing and laws work, it takes years for these things to enact. And when Biden took over, all of his stuff went into place and everything went down the shitter. And then all he did was go, look what Biden did, which is just not how it works. If you know how legislation ends up going through like Congress and stuff like that, it takes years for these things to actually process. They banned TikTok months ago, and it's not even, it's taking until January for them to even decide.
What's funny is people credit him for being like a neutral guy that can flip decisions. And if you've recently seen Trump saying he's going to save TikTok.
Yeah, he was the one that campaigned for it to begin with.
He's the one that said it was a threat to American society and that we shouldn't have it. But now he's saying it's a right of free speech. So the opinions have just entirely flip-flopped. And you could say that's character growth. But you could say that's character growth of somebody that's in their 20s or our age.
I think it's political character growth.
An 80-year-old man having character growth.
80-year-old, yeah. Yeah, I think it's fair to. I think that's a good emphasis. He's literally 78 or whatever.
Well, and I think going back to like the Republican Party appealing to young men, because if you actually look at the polls, Kamala Harris still won the young vote, but by like 5
Not
points.
by a lot.
Yeah. Whereas Biden won it by like Biden won it by like 15, right?
Yeah.
And Kamala won the women's vote by like 30 points between I think ages of 18 to 25. She won the men's vote by like 3.
But there was still a staggering amount of white women that didn't vote for her.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day, like there is like, it's a good point to make, because there is a lot of like, she did win some of these
with the
like
women's
polling.
Votes. If you just did the women's vote, she would have won the election.
But ultimately, like she barely did, and at this point, barely didn't win the election, and barely wasn't going to win the election, because unfortunately, like, he has figured out this way to like appeal himself so well to people that like he has figured out the political posturing that he needs to do to like seem credible enough, because he's been doing it his whole life. He knows how to like tell somebody he can make them money, not necessarily how he's going to make them money. He just knows how to like say he can do it.
Well, I think all he has to do in his strategy is, I think this is just politics in general. If you make the other side look worse than you win, right?
Exactly.
And he's really good at bringing his opponents down. Yep. And then promising very loose, broad things that seem very appealing, being relatable, and then coming off as just, kind of a brand-friendly guy where it's like, you could put your trust into me. I'm going to get stuff done. I have no idea what I could tell you specifically, but that's what I'm going to do. And I think that all men go through a phase where
that's all some guys want to hear.
When I was 14, 15, I watched Ben Shapiro. Like, I've told my chat this. I watched Ben Shapiro when I was 14, 15, right?
I was watching Minecraft, but
I know. I watched video games too, but it would come up on my feed on YouTube where it would be like, Ben Shapiro owns people. And I remember him saying, facts don't care about the feelings, and me being like, yeah, this guy gets it. This guy. And then you take a psychology class and you learn anything, and you realize like half the shit he's saying is just closed-minded, not understanding the idea of sociology and how humans work, right? Beyond, facts don't care about the feelings. This is basic human biology. This is this. Like, you could sit there and say, in the sense, this is just a common example of what Ben Shapiro, argues about, whether it be gender or something like that. You could be like, well, there's only 2 sexes. Yeah, but gender is obviously a thing within human sociology because it's currently happening. You could sit there and be like, this shouldn't be the way that it is, but it exists, right? It exists because there are millions of people that feel that way, and it's not because of brainwashing or something. They've all kind of simultaneously started to come forward saying, now that I'm allowed to be heard, this is how I felt for the last fucking 10, 20, 30 years. And it's probably been that way 100 years ago, but if you said that shit 100 years ago, they probably would have killed you, right? So, yeah. Stuff
grows, society changes, and we get more understandable about our common, like our differences. Mm-hmm. Like psychologically, anthropologically, like, people get a better understanding of people that aren't exactly like them if they have just one person that is different. Like, if one of us never had a gay friend, and all of a sudden you just habitually you get a better understanding of a gay person and better compassion towards a person who deals with like what comes when you're gay, like the societal oppression by people in terms of like if that's right or not. And that's unfair for them to have to feel that way. But like, one of my best friends is a gay man, and I would put my body on the line for him because he is a genius and he's going to change the world, and he deserves to do so because he hasn't done a single thing to not deserve that, and neither have I. Like, there's plenty of space at this table that like us as straight white men have been given, and like that's just for how society has been put in our favor. And we can't do anything about that except want to pull people up with us. And I think what's being fed deliberately, for this exact reason of you being like, well, the Republican Party wants these votes regardless of if they're going to help them. What's being fed to a lot of people like our age and younger is the opposite, where it's like there's no room. They're trying to take you down and take your spot, which is just not what's happening.
I think it's that a lot of younger men feel as if that when they go into the job world, instead of everybody having an equal chance, because now they're a straight white guy and we're trying to give everybody more of a even ground, that they're going to be lowered down so the other people can be moved up.
Yeah, they see it as like
instances
a
of that, right? Is there instances of that in certain businesses? Like, yeah, what's that one gaming company?
I'm sure you can find some.
Yeah, there's that one gaming company. I forget what I don't think it was Blizzard, but it was something where like their head CEO was like, I would never hire a white guy, and like in that scenario, that's wild, but that's a very niche thing that people go and just apply to everything and say, oh yeah, the white man's just going to be tanked to the ground no matter what's going to happen. You need to step up and vote for us so we could fucking take a stand. And I'm like, dude, if you look at it, the majority of people in office, in politics, or in power in general are straight white guys that are also Christian. And so that's even more absurd when I see, they're trying to take our religion away and all this other stuff. I'm like dude,
yeah,
Christianity
you have it all already.
Never going anywhere in the United States. More and more people are becoming less religious. That's just by societal chance, right? That's just by society and people feeling as if that they haven't been heard in that religion and they don't believe in those things. It's not because, we're not putting the Bible in schools, which is also wild. They're trying to do that again. If you saw in Oklahoma, they're doing a bill where
requiring it
in public schools, they're requiring it. And the only Bible, if you look in it, the only Bible that follows the requirements that need to be put in all public schools is the one on Trump's website that he sells.
It's the American adjusted version that somehow happens to include this homophobia that didn't exist in the original translations of the Bible. If you actually go further back into the original writings,
there's so many requirements of it, and I'm like, dude, they're just doing this to try and help people that are putting them in office, right? Or vice versa, in the sense of like, if you actually look at the requirements of the Bible too, number one, I don't think the Bible should be in any school that's a public school, right? I went to a private school. It was a religious private school. In that sense, yes.
And
right,
religion was taught in my school because it was,
I had to take theology classes.
The school was a religious school and said they were and said why they wanted to teach that. And like, that's understandable, but to push that into a space that doesn't bring religion into its academics at all is like the exact opposite of what America stands for or should stand for.
And I also feel like that's just not even a take that most Republicans get behind. Like, I have a lot of right-leaning viewers, and they're probably going to be watching this, and some of them are probably going to get butthurt and comment about it, and that's, good on you. But I talked about this on stream. Part of this is
where everybody's allowed to express that, and that's like kind of like what should exist.
Yeah, you want discussion. But not arguments. You want a discussion. It doesn't need to be just like spit-firing insults. But the one thing that I think most sides can agree upon is that you shouldn't put religion in schools, because you could sit there and say, oh yeah, as a Christian, it makes sense. I think Christian values need to be in public schools. But conversely, the way that you make people understand it is the reason church and state needs to be separated is because imagine if, in saying this to a Christian, imagine if every day before class you had to read the Quran. And then that's when they lose their fucking mind, right? Is they go, why would I have to do that? Like,
even go to like part of the posturing of this election where they're like convinced and telling people that like schools are making transgender surgeries happen. And it's like, dude, if you actually like looked into it, schools can't even give you a wheelchair without like signing, like without parental permission. They can't even treat your kid nowadays if they've broken something without deliberate parental permission. Like legally, they're not allowed to do that. Like there are so many health and HIPAA violations of them trying to do anything close to that without any sort of parental like permission that it's not even possible. And like you even say any of that or tell them that that's real and they lose it. Like one of those arguments a long time ago with like how like the flag, like the gay pride flag and everything is like indoctrination in schools and stuff, and that shouldn't exist, whatever, like that argument. It's like, how is you forcing the Bible onto people who are not Catholic or Christian, how is that any different? It's realistically not. If you scope it out and look at it literally, you're forcing a direct type of thing towards somebody. And
well, it's not even,
that's not even what like the pride flag is doing. The pride flag is just essentially being like, these people need to be seen and heard because they're put down so much societally that they deserve to have a voice that isn't typically given, like more often than not.
And even if the pride flag was on that same scheme, it's still nowhere near as bad as teaching the Bible in schools, in public schools where people aren't that religion, because now you're forming their personality as like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old to start believing in something that's, you know, a faith-based belief. I would say this of any religion, in the sense that you can't teach something that is based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof in a school that's supposed to teach you definitive facts, right? And when the gay pride flag and all this stuff,
decision making, like schools to help you learn how to like figure things out and discern and versus, become responsible.
Yeah, versus gay acceptance and being there for people in the LGBTQ. You're putting that on the same level as me changing what you believe is going to happen when you die, also make you believe in all of these rules, which is going to change the entirety of your life, rather than being just like, yeah, gay people are cool. Yeah,
like for sure. I just in case somebody's worried, I did not mean to compare the two as equal. It was just like the first example, but it's true though. Like there's a difference between a whole ideology and religion being like, this happens, this is what happens afterwards, like this is who is accepted, who isn't, other than like what Pride Month is, or like a Pride Day at school, or like at a sporting event, just being like, these people exist and that's okay. Like they're not even saying,
they're not like, you have to do this, gay.
You have to be this, because that's just not how it works. They're just being like, these people deserve to be acknowledged, and because they don't get acknowledged typically.
It's the same thing.
We need to tell them that that's okay. Like they get to exist.
It's the same thing as like, I always relate it to like, if you're trying to check up on your friend that you're worried about, you know, mentally, it's just like, hey, are you all right, man? Just kind of opening that door in case something needs to be talked about, right? So they're not sitting there pushing, you need to be gay in schools. It's more so like, hey, if you think you're gay, that's fine, right?
Yeah, like you're allowed.
Not,
like you should be allowed. You
shouldn't be ashamed
that and
of
express
yourself.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a majority of people agree.
I have my chat on.
Wait, pray tell,
doth Sir Joseph Bartholomew partake in displaying one's endeavors before the masses, good sirs? See, like, it's 1 p.m. on a Thursday. I'm not streaming today. Why is that guy in my chat?
I have some people that hang out in my chat and talk to each other. I don't get people being like, where the fuck are you? That's wild to me.
No, I get that a lot, dude, especially if I'm like,
it's
fractionally
cute.
Late.
It's kind of cute if you ask me, in a way. Like, it is a guy being like, I want to hang out. Like, where's my guy? Where's my guy I watch? I miss him.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, it's cute.
What were you saying though?
I don't remember. That really like that really got me
derailed us.
Really derailed me. Yeah, it was
when
funny.
Jimski.
That's just a funny, like, little genuine, cute, like, are you here?
Paragraph. And what's crazy is, like, there's no way, like, that guy probably thinks I'm not even going to see that.
Yeah. Wait till he reads this or watches this.
Podcast episode. No, but the one other thing I wanted to say, because I talked to you about this before with the UFO stuff, is, for those of you that don't know, at the time of this recording, yesterday, they had a UFO hearing in Congress, which I found fascinating.
Wild.
What's even more fascinating to me is they always do this shit after something that's going to distract the masses.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, everybody's talking about Trump winning the election and the election in general.
UFOs are real.
We're not alone in the universe. We've seen UFOs.
What? Who said that?
They might have flipped a plane. They might have teleported a plane. We have video of it. Sorry.
They did this. When did they do this last time? I forgot.
With David Grush. They had David. Well, they had one prior. They had one in the Mexican government, but that guy ended up just getting debunked because it was like fake alien carcasses that he like. They looked like they were made out of paper mache.
That was kind of funny. That looked like the most like what you would imagine a movie to be like. Oh, little green guys.
It was like like a bipedal animal that just literally looks like E.T. Like that's just not how aliens would look. Like the odds that an alien would have 2 eyes, 2 legs, arms, and breathe and function the same way we do is just highly unlikely.
That is what's so funny to me is like the idea that they're so similar is so funny because I'm like that. There's no guarantee. There's no foundation that that's going to be a thing.
It's not even no foundation. It's the likelihood that they are like ET is just it's not possible, right? Because the odds that it's
statistically more impossible that they would be close to us than that they exist.
I think they statistically exist. I just think they would look and function entirely out of the realm that we could understand, right? They might not even have vision. Right, for all you know, they might not be even able to see anything or feel anything.
They could just see totally differently as well.
Yeah, or the senses they have could be drastically different, right? Just because we evolved in this manner and we're intelligent doesn't mean that every other intelligent species is going to look, act, and be like us, right?
Or even feel similarly. Like, they might know we're here and might not fuck with us at all on purpose and like deliberately
avoid. Think we're stupid.
Yeah, like I imagine if I stumbled upon here and we're like, what the hell is going on?
Oh, just seeing how we can't even get along. If we're not a unified species in the first place, right? Why the fuck would they want to interact with us, right?
Yeah, if they're in any way a higher like level of
outside of like testing
evolution.
On us.
Yeah.
And I was going to say the last time this happened was with David Grush, who was kind of a higher up in the military and the government. They ended up trying to kind of slander him and make up all these things about him to kind of debunk him as an individual so he wouldn't be able to go forth and talk about it. He ended up, proving his innocence and then going in forth of the government, getting clearance to only talk about very specific things and not talk about others. And he basically confirmed that the U.S. government has been recovering alien aircraft that's not made by humans since like the 1940s.
Which is just insane.
In front of Congress.
Just an insane thing to just
drop. In front of
drop.
Congress.
And they're like, it's been like 100 years.
Yeah, and you could sit there and be like, oh, this guy's bullshitting. But like, he's sitting in front of Congress as somebody that was very high up militaristically,
who would be directly involved with this exact thing. Who would be
involved in this, who was also kept in the dark about specific things. They tried to ruin his life so he couldn't talk about it. When they couldn't, they were like, fine. And then they fucking drop it in like when some other shit happened. I think it was like peak COVID or some shit. During peak COVID is actually when they shared UFO footage. That was the first time.
They showed all those like unidentified objects, which is like not necessarily alien. It was just like the government was like, the fuck is this? We don't know.
Well, that's what one of the things they talked about in this hearing was that the U.S. military has been tracking for over the past like 20 years these random objects that might be from Earth, but they maneuver in such a way the human body can only withstand a certain amount of G-forces. And even outside of that, an unmanned aircraft, the best aircraft we have, at least in the U.S., can withstand 18 Gs before it starts ripping itself apart.
Well, astronauts train for years just to deal with the launch speed of their ships.
And the things they've seen and have footage of are moving in speeds and, changing trajectory in such a way that it's like 1,000 Gs. Like it would rip your body would just implode in the way that it just goes and then stops.
Yeah, if it's like totally undoctored
the
footage, there's just no way a person is sitting in that without their neck just like totally snapping in place.
Can we watch the video? I want to see your take.
I kind of want to watch the video. You've like piqued my interest a little too hard.
It looks kind of fake. I'm gonna keep it real.
What time is this at? 30. Okay. Hopefully, let me message you exactly this time frame of the recording so I don't forget.
30. I'm at 36:48, but you started right before we started.
Yeah, I just did like a general
started
time
after me,
so I can find it, and then it'll just sync up with our audio, so we can just 3, 2, 1 it, and then we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, should we read the tweet?
Well, the one I sent you is the second video of a thread.
Oh.
But it says, we teleported in an airplane. It's oddly specific that all this UFO stuff is about 3 orbs in a triangle formation. We recorded secretly in infrared and thermal. The MH370 videos are from 10 years ago, just days and weeks after the plane vanished. 2 military videos from completely different perspectives of the same event. Let's just accept that the U.S. did this sinister crime. The universe is holographic, and 0-point energy is free green energy. Okay, see, it's making it seem like
a little like
conspiracy theorist, but it is a weird. Okay, the first video has way more likes and seems way less outlandish. This is just the thermal version of that video.
Okay,
I think it's crazy.
You want to count it down?
Yeah, 3, 2, 1, go. It starts off not that crazy, right? Just them
it just
recording.
looks like a regular plane.
Yeah, just them recording a plane. And I also got to say, if I was the person recording this, I would be freaking out. And then you see this weird object, right? Start like slowly circling the plane. And there's another one. And then there's a third one.
That's like symmetrical too in the way they're circling.
Bro, it looks so fake. It
looks like a spell in a game.
Yeah, I know. But like, it's, I don't know. If this is real, it's crazy. Tomorrow when I'm on stream, I'm just going to be watching the full Congress hearing. But apparently this is like one of the videos that they have had. Whether or not it's true. And then it just disappears. And then it just disappears. The plane, where'd it go?
Okay, I hate that. I wasn't expecting it to just fucking vanish.
And then it does it in slow-mo, and it literally just blips.
That is so...
And it has it in still frame.
It looks like one of those spells in a game where you get, like, projectiles around you to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it looks like to me. And maybe somebody just, like, edited it in... And it is from a game, but still, it's weird for the government to be like, oops.
This is the original of the same thing, but it's just not thermal. Like this one looks more real.
You don't really see the balls or anything?
No, you still see them, but it's like, it looks like a very low FPS thing. And then it just disappears.
You want to count it down again real quick?
Yeah, we could watch part of this video. 3,
I just want to see until it disappears.
1, go. I want to know.
Is this a different perspective?
Yeah. I want to know what specifically this flight is. Right?
Yeah,
they
like is there
MH370.
Do they have this plane?
Is that the number of the flight?
Is the plane gone?
Well, they're saying it disappeared in 2014, and I'm like, did this, like, has it just vanished?
Damn, there really is just like 3 things circling that shit.
Yeah.
Just coming up sequentially. Ooh, I hate it.
And then it just goes. Through the clouds. Still circling. Imagine being a passenger on this plane. Whoomp. Out of thin air. Where would that even make it go? I don't know. Whether or not that's real, I have no idea. I don't know if that was involved in the Congress hearing, but that was me at 4 a.m. scrolling on Twitter.
I'd be somebody said it was freaking out if I was the camera observing that.
And regardless of whether or not that's real, the hearing itself was still crazy that these guys that were in the Pentagon higher ups, 5-10 years ago, are coming out and saying, yeah, finally we're able to talk about this. We're not alone in the universe, and there's been highly intelligent life in weird aircraft that we've been just recovering. And it could be from the Chinese military, but it's unlikely that they would have this high tech.
Bro, if they got something that can instantly transport something to another spot, I want it, because that's like so ideal. Imagine being able to just travel instantaneously.
Well,
I need that.
I'm thinking those people just died, if that's real.
Probably.
Instantly.
Like, I can't,
there's no
like,
way.
unless they somehow factor us, and like if it's extraterrestrial, if they somehow factored in like what we need physically to stay intact.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear all this stuff like in shows when people do this sort of like jump where like particles of like their cells get separated and shit and gets put back together strange. Like, sure, that could totally have happened. But I love the idea of just being able to like, and you're somewhere. Like imagine like you just wanted to we just wanted to stream together, and I just show up. I'm just there, hanging out. I'm in New Jersey. Let's go. I just teleport. I teleport to your door, actually. Like,
I mean, these guys might just have gone crazy. Who knows? But it says experts testified before lawmakers that the U.S. has been running secret UAP programs and hiding it from the people. Former Pentagon official says we are not alone in the universe. It's a Wall Street Journal. Bro, but like, why are no major news stations talking about this? I don't know.
Well, because they're all paid and just bought to like talk about.
David Rush testified in 2023. He sat under oath a firestorm of different, not allegations, but like points. Among Rush's claims offered without evidence were an alleged shadowy multi-decade Pentagon program to retrieve and study not only downed spacecraft, but extraterrestrial pilots and life. Grush accused the Pentagon under oath of being aware of extraterrestrial activity since the 1930s and hiding the program from Congress while misappropriating funds to operate it.
Wow.
That's crazy if before World War II there's been knowledge.
That is what he's saying. Wow. That's.
And like, why would he lie? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like a clout thing. Like, he had a position where he could have just been rich within the government. Like, he's not like a fake person.
What's crazy is you could go even deeper and you're like, what if we figured out like the nuclear bomb because of this program? You know what I mean?
Because of aliens?
Because of technology that we didn't have, that we discovered through this deep state. I'm getting my aluminum foil
I don't know, but they do explain it. They do explain it very. I don't know. I don't think splitting the atom.
I don't think so either. I'm just saying, like, you could really go that deep, and people do.
I think personally, splitting the atom would signal something that would make extraterrestrial life more attracted to try and see what we're doing, because that's probably like a definitive.
You're thinking maybe that's what like got us attention.
I don't know if that got us attention, but if I'm just saying, if I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a high-tech alien,
okay,
something that I would say is a sign of intelligent life is the capacity to understand and manipulate the smallest form of, chemistry, like anatomies and protons, neutrons, being able to jam a bunch of
really that is as small molecularly as we can go.
To be able to understand that, I would say something where it's like, that's like if there was an alien checklist on like, hey, they're intelligent, you're able to split an atom and understand that.
Nuclear fission is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And very delicate. So, and that's as far as we can go, as far as we know. I mean, it could be even smaller
than that.
Yeah, that's the whole crazy thing is like, this is just theory, and like we don't actually have like a definitive like, yeah, that's it. We're just convinced that that's it. I mean, that's the whole reason science is always so loose, is because theories change, and they deserve to, because if you think something's definitive, you never search for further answers or more meaning, and you never adjust it. So then we just get stuff like back in Galileo's phase where everybody's like, yeah, the world is the center. And then he's like, the fuck it isn't. And they're like, shut up, die. So,
well, dude, that's like, that goes back to like, whatever I hear about flat earthers, it just, my chat's always like, you're too hard on them. I'm like, bro, it's just idiotic. If there's a guy who figured out the earth is round with a stick. Eratosthenes measured with fair accuracy the circumference of the earth by using a shadow cast by a stick at noon on the summer solstice in Alexandria, and made an angle of about 7.2 degrees or 1/50th of a complete circle, and then did the math in 384, or like the 300 BC era.
In 300 BC?
Actually, I don't know. Let me actually look up. Eratosthenes.
That's what's so hard for me to refute stuff like that.
194 BC.
Like when a dude from like literally the before Christ era, or before whatever, I don't even remember,
said
what BC
the earth was round,
like figured that out. Yeah. Before anybody was even saying it, he was like, guess what, guys? Check this shit out.
Guess what? I put a stick in a hole, and then I walked really far away and put another stick in a hole. And then I figured out the
size of our planet. Earth
is round, and this is how big the circumference is around the Earth.
What was the concept of planets even understood by then? What would have even prompted him to do that? Just like, I wonder how big this whole place is. Maybe it's like Columbus, where he was trying to find one place and found the other. Maybe he was like, how big is my country or my area? And then he was like, oh my God, it's huge. Not knowing he was like measuring Earth.
What made Eratosthenes try to figure the circumference of Earth? Dude, probably it should be he was bored.
Dude, going back
he recognized the curvature of the Earth between the distance of two known cities, which made him want to calculate the planet's circumference.
So he did understand it was a planet. Still,
he realized he needed to know the size of Earth because he was fascinated with geography and wanted to map the entire world.
We love that. We love a good, passionate nerd.
I just never understand.
This is what is fascinating. This is something from like, what was it, 180 BC you said? When did this happen?
180 BC. Yeah, like 2000.
This is
2000
actually 2,000 years ago. This is what frustrates me. And this is why, like, I get heated at hearing people in your chat apparently telling you to be easy on flat earthers. It's like, we have expansive amounts of knowledge in our pocket. We live in an era where we can look up everything and almost always get the answer. It's all available.
I think flat earthers are just full, like, not even just, conspiracy theory about the moon landing's fake. Flat earthers aren't flat earthers. They're just fucking conspiracy theorists. They're just trying to be a jerk off. It
coincides pretty much, yeah.
Well, because if you think the Earth is flat, you're then recognizing that every other planet's round, and the sun is round, and the moon is round, but Earth is not.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, if you're a flat earther, you also believe the moon landing's fake and that we've never been to space, right? You have to, because if you believe the moon landing's real, they turn around and take a picture of the fucking Earth, and it's round, right? And so that, or you have to believe in like multiple conspiracy theories, just basically saying that the government and NASA has been lying to us, that gravity's fake because they have to say water finds its center or something.
You have to go down a pretty big rabbit hole to even
a massive rabbit hole to even be able to try and explain how the Earth could be flat. It just it makes no sense. So
yeah, it just literally goes back to what I just said. It's like we have like literally we have an entire national global like library in our phone that we don't even have to walk around to find what we need. We can just ask for it and something goes and finds it to figure out what we want to learn. Like, we live in such an expansive informative age that we can just find out things if we want to. But the hilarious ironic part is that a majority of people don't, because we're like, and I don't even know why that is. Anytime I'm wondering something, I look it up all the time. I love finding shit out.
If I question something, I immediately look it up.
I love finding shit out. It's so fascinating because we're so capable of finding it. Like, that's what's crazy to me is so many people are so like, yeah, this is fake, that's wrong, or this. I mean, like all this shit, like Trump saying something, like like the whole thing with him in tariffs. He did not explain tariffs correctly. What he was explaining was import tax.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have a theory going back into politics. I have a theory that he purposely avoided the word tax because Republicans hate tax. And when they hear that, they go, "Oh, I'm spending money." No. Mm-hmm. So I have a bit of a theory that he avoided saying tax on purpose, but explained import tax. But it got muddied and everybody just thinks it's tariffs. So even the companies that he was going to import tax are freaking out and causing price hiking for preparation of tariffs anyway.
Well, I feel like people don't understand that with the upping of tariffs, I understand the primary goal is to keep American businesses thriving and kind of divert American consumers to consuming American-based products.
But that's not what's happening.
It's not going to happen because people are still going to want the foreign products. They're just going to be more expensive because the price is going to be put onto the consumer.
And a majority of things produced and sold that you buy a lot of are foreign, made elsewhere.
Even if they are American companies, they're still importing.
Half of them are not made here.
Yeah,
if not most, not even half, more than half. That's what's crazy. Is I get the idea of wanting things made natively, like being proud of the production of American things is a great thing to want. But that's not what happens. Businesses love going to different nations and paying people cheaper wages to make products and make more money that way. That is just what like companies are doing. And to just be like, well, they'll just not do that is crazy. They're not just going to like stop. They're just going to keep doing it because a tariff doesn't punish them at all. It just makes it more expensive on the consumer at the end of the day.
Well, what were you going to say?
Well, just because that's how it works. That's what a tariff does is it comes in. There is a surcharge that they already pay, but that's not even what the tariff is. Mm-hmm. The tariff is what the company pays for that. So the company that pays for that product to come in
is just going to hike the prices to be able to.
They have to pay more, so they're just going to hike the price of what they're selling. Yeah. So like if something from China is $30 and they bring it in, except the tariffs make it $50, the company has to pay for that $50. So what was originally $30, they're just going to make $50 because they need to make that money back. And that's exactly how it works. The company bringing that in doesn't do that. The company here buying that product from the different country is who takes on that tax that becomes your problem because they just make it more expensive.
Well, the rebuttal to that is, yes, those products would get more expensive, but playing devil's advocate, what, people that I know are Republican would say is that's trying to fuel the American economy and dissuade American consumers from buying foreign goods. But the issue with that is, and I hate when people say, oh, we just need an American economy. We just need something where we are all an enclosed circuit that fuels each other. That's bad. You need, because then our country never grows and we just share wealth around, which is not going to be shared when, I get taxed less, right, as somebody that shouldn't be taxed less under Trump's, tax plan. And I'm going to be making more money, and the big, head CEOs and big companies are going to make more money. They're not going to share that wealth downward. So now if we're just circling money around the U.S. economy and we're not using any foreign goods, any foreign trade or anything, not selling products to other countries, not buying products from other countries, that's bad because then we're literally just spreading wealth around. You need other countries to sell shit to and use them with trade because that's how you make your country more profitable and more rich, by taking money from other countries.
Yeah, bro,
and
cook.
If we're not gonna fucking do that and we're just gonna sit here and work with each other, I understand of trying to get more American companies to have a higher revenue rate, but if those customers are only from the United States, then it's not really doing that much. What we need to do is, buy more American products, but also sell more American products to other fucking countries so we can have more money in the U.S.
There's a benefit to like an international economy because like both places benefit to like selling each other their things. Like that's literally like the whole, I mean, exactly what you're saying. Like,
well,
we don't benefit from a strict American economy. We hurt because we don't expand and broaden and increase like economically, essentially. Like, I mean, exactly. I'm just reiterating what you're saying, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Well, even in the sense of like streamers, like me and you have a majority United States audience, but the people that watch us from outside the U.S. and pay to sub to us are giving, say they're from Canada, they're
giving
taking
more
Canadian money and giving it to the U.S. by giving you money, which you're then going to go spend on U.S. goods and keep that in U.S. circulation until it goes to another country. So I understand in the sense of like, hey, let's up tariffs so we're not giving money to other countries and keeping it here. But we're not providing another way of selling our shit to other countries. We're just saying, hey, we're going to buy our own stuff, which isn't going to make our economy any better. It's just going to make those countries make less money, right?
Yeah.
It's not, I don't understand. It's just.
I don't understand either.
It's more complicated than just saying, hey, we're going to tax your stuff.
I don't even have like any sort of, and I guess this in a way invalidates how talking about it, but like I don't even have like an economic background or anything but I understand this. Like it's crazy for me to like not have the knowledge or the education and still understand it better than the majority of people who are convinced that this is a good idea.
Well, I've talked to this with my friends, and this is not democratic, right? What I'm about to say, but I believe that you should have to take a test to be able to vote, and I think it should be a test that is every 4 years that tests knowledge on politics and general knowledge on like just job and life-based things, foreign policy. And if you don't pass, you can't vote.
Interesting.
I believe that because of what Socrates said back when, aristocrats and nobles used to be the leaders and how the start of democracy was always seen as bad by philosophers. Because the example they always give, if you're a captain, if you need a new captain of a boat, are you going to let the shipmates select a captain? Or a random farmer that's 150 miles inland? And then on top of that, the average American voter doesn't understand the idea of things being maybe bad initially, but good later on, right?
Well,
and
exactly.
you could say this of
what
both
I was saying
sides.
earlier. They don't understand how like presidential like laws go into place. It takes a long time for them to actually like affect.
Well, that
exactly what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, that and people just want their president to give them instant gratification. They want instant tax breaks, instant money, instant stimulus, right?
Which doesn't happen.
Which doesn't work. And the example they give even 1,000 years ago, more than that, if you are electing a leader or electing a new doctor, and one of them is an actual doctor who's going to sit there and say, you can't eat candy, you can't eat this, you can't do that. You have to eat vegetables and fruits and all these other healthy things. People are going to be fucking annoyed, right? Because they're going to be like, why? You're cutting out all this stuff that I have to do, and I have to eat this shit that I don't enjoy. It's not
people
instant
freaked out when
gratification.
Michelle Obama tried to make lunches healthier in schools. They freaked out because it was going to make it taxes more.
And the benefit of those things won't be shown till a later date. Then your opponent, instead of being a doctor, is the candy man who says, I'm going to let you eat whatever the fuck you want. You can have this. I'm going to give you free candy at the fucking start of my term. And, it's going to be a great time. Everybody's going to vote for them, right?
Yep.
Because nobody's thinking, well, what are the implications of this long term, right? What is going to happen about this long term? And that on an election level, I just think the majority of American voters, how many people voted this election? Like 140 million? 150
something like
million?
that.
Yeah.
It was around that ballpark, yeah.
I think we should chop that down by 100 million people.
I'm
not even saying
that's a wild take. That is a wild take.
You can say that's a wild take. I think that you should. I'm not saying it's a test you have one time and you should never be able to take it again. I believe that. I think it would cut numbers down equally on both sides. I'm not saying, oh, this is going to like be a great thing. People would be pissed, right?
I think there's also a lot of like logical.
But if you don't pass, you can't vote.
I think there's a lot of logical holes there. I get what you're saying.
But in what way?
And the defense makes sense. But like, if it's a test, how do those questions get established?
Yeah, I don't know what the test would be. I don't know when the test would change.
What stops people from like leaking those answers or telling people the answers? Like, how do you constantly update it to where it's not the same? How do you stop?
This would never happen.
Exactly.
I'm saying hypothetically.
Not
even hypothetically.
I just think about it like if it were to place, I don't know how it would like logically be like how the integrity would be safe.
Yeah. Well, that definitely, but I'm just saying more on the basis of democracy. I don't think that everybody should be able to vote based off of the lack of knowledge of everything political. And I'm not trying to remove that freedom because I understand it's the freedom and the civil duty and responsibility to be able to vote. But at the same time, if your dumbass is, regardless of party, walking into a voter booth, checking a box, putting your vote for somebody that you don't know anything about, and you're only voting for because your parents told you to, shit.
Did you
you're
see
an
like
idiot.
yeah. I mean, I kind of agree. Did you see like the Google trends of like after Trump won the election of all the people like searching Trump tariff laws? Can I change my vote? Like all Trump tax plan, like literally looking up that information post election. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I just keep seeing people being like, my friend who voted for Trump is now talking about tariffs, realizing how bad they're actually going to be. It's like,
I saw a thread where they were like, dude, the groceries are probably just going to get more expensive.
You could have looked that up to be like the second he said it and been like, this guy's not talking right. This doesn't make sense.
Well, and then we also said we wanted to talk about this, and we haven't yet, is the idea that people treat the Trump win like a Super Bowl victory.
Oh my God,
and how
dude,
people treat and this is not just, I think it's heavily on the Republican side this election because of the idea of Make America Great Again, the slogan, the hats, the merch.
It really goes both ways sometimes when you boil it down.
No, definitely, especially with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and all that. But like the idea of Make America Great Again and everything, it's like a political slogan, but people treat their political party like I'm
their
a
favorite
fucking
team.
Philadelphia Eagles fan, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go fucking set the streets on fire when my team wins, right?
Yep.
It's like, dude, we are voting for a professional political person to run our country, but we're acting like they just
possibly affect the world. Most likely affect the world.
Oh, seeing that the U.S. economy is one of, the biggest in the world, if not the biggest, especially with the biggest military. And we're going to sit here and go,
as Kamala Harris put, the most lethal.
Right, when I fucking made a video just sharing what I was going to vote for. People are, why don't you hold that L? Brainwashed, dumb liberal. I'm like, dude. And the kids commenting it are 15. You can't vote. You can't vote.
You didn't even need to look into this at all. It didn't
What the hell? Sitting there, we won. It's not we, buddy. Even if Kamala Harris won, I never would have gone,
Buddy thinks she's part of the team.
We won. He won. Right? You didn't win.
I would have been like, thank fuck. That's all I would have really said. I wouldn't have been like,
take the L,
it's so
loser.
Dumb. They don't like you, bro. They're just... All politicians are just talking out their ass and posturing in a way that is appealing to as many people as possible so they can be in charge and be like, I'm in charge. But then they deal with the fact that so many people also have control of what they do, they barely get anything done. And then they go, what the fuck? I didn't get anything done. And it's like, none of them like you. None of them like you.
All politicians just have loose promises. It's just,
exactly. Well, that's the whole thing. That's the whole... The
I
president
wish we had an honest...
just promises a million things during his run, I guess her or their run, anything now. Like they just promise a million things and then might do one thing. Like Obama did two things. He legalized gay marriage and he created like a better healthcare system. Like Obamacare did a lot to stop like pre-existing conditions and gave access to more people, albeit not the amount of access he strived for and promised, because he promised to close that gap entirely in terms of like people's lower income meeting the requirement of the other side of like getting healthcare. But that's a totally different point. He did two things basically. And at the same time, one of the things he promised was that he was going to ratify Roe v. Wade and make abortion rights solidified. Day one, he said he was going to do that the second he got into office. He never did it. He literally never did it. He never did it. And no, he didn't do it the 8 years he was in charge. And Biden didn't do it. Biden let it go away. Biden let it slip because they balked on a very important topic for people, and that is still leaving terrible tastes in a lot of people's mouths.
I also think that the idea that I understand the purpose in a Supreme Court justice serving till death. If you have a short term with them, then a lot of laws are just going to get flip-flopped, right? Because there's going to be new people that are going to have different takes, and they're going to revisit a million things, right? But to sit there and elect a guy at 40 years old, and now he's going to live till 85, and he's going to serve till I die, is insane, right? That one, I don't think an individual president should be able to elect more than one Supreme Court justice in an individual term, right? Didn't Trump do two or three?
Two. People are predicting he gets to do another.
Who's going to die this term?
I think it's more that two people might step down.
Yeah.
Which would further make.
It would just make the entirety of the Supreme Court basically just fully.
And it would further make what RGB did more distasteful in the sense that she didn't step down when she was asked to, essentially. Which sucks, but she didn't when she could have, and because she didn't, she died under a Republican administration, and then that became a Republican seat. The same seat that you're talking about, that's going to exist for 40 years. By the time we're dead, we're never going to see that seat replaced unless something somehow happens out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So
or they retire or give up. But
they don't tend to do. So
I don't know. I would be fucking nervous to be a Supreme Court justice, let alone just, any justice position in general. Like, that shit's scary. Now, I'm not even saying, like, being a lawyer is entirely different, but being somebody that's a judge and has to make those decisions.
Having that amount of discretion is like...
People want to kill you. People want to... I think every single one of those Supreme Court justices that are active in duty right now...
They probably have to have their mail filtered, like big time for sure.
Mail filtered. They have heavy
security.
Privacy, security. They probably try to hide where they are and who they are. And I mean, not who they are because they're publicly known, but I'm saying like the extent that the government has to go to keep those people private is insane because some people want to kill them, like just because of what they do. And then on top of that, imagine being a judge that's like sentencing people to like 10, 15, 20 years. That motherfucker gets out. Now they want to kill you.
Even if it's an understandable sentencing, like even if he's
you're
pretty
still
fair,
you're still gonna be like, dude, you just sentenced me to like 15 years.
The problem is that these positions are made and given under the assumption that these people will be very middle and understanding and unbiased, except psychologically, everybody is biased, and it's hard for people to remove that from every decision. Like, everybody has pre-existing biases, either from like experience or from like their environment. Like they either learned it from where they like around them, or they were told it from people around them, or seen it and made their own assumptions. And people just have a difficult time removing those in decisions, even just during a person in their day-to-day. Like, imagine having to feel like you're being totally fair about something towards everybody in a law that's going to affect decades of people. I mean, like, I can't imagine that the pressure that feels like, even thinking about that, is crazy. I mean, it's really difficult for people to remove their sort of like that sort of like predisposition.
Well, and, like you're saying, them having to not be in that position and have any sort of bias in the
and have any sort of like influence based off of their personal bias. Yeah, exactly. Like whether or not it's like the levels in which those biases are like wrong or even racist, whatever, that's a whole different thing. That's a whole different topic that like goes into this like nurture versus nature thing psychologically. But like even the smallest of biases are hard to like remove out of like people's actions, just because that's just what we do. All of our experiences and behaviors we've learned through genetics or through our experiences portray and manifest through all of our decisions. And like, it's hard to give somebody the job of being like, don't do that, but take care of everybody. You can't do that though. Like, it's not to defend people, not to defend Supreme Court justices, because like, fuck them, they're ruining people's lives for a long time in a lot of ways.
Well, I think you're just saying the pressure of having to do that, and then also
more like a judge. More like a judge for sure.
Definitely. Well, even on, like, I just think more and more, but like political things that are being, thrown to the House of Representatives or the Senate are more getting voted on, not even by bias, but by personal greed and selfishness to keep that position. So they vote with their party rather than actually sitting there and then not even having bias, but sitting there and stepping
I would argue
at it
that
and
is
looking
bias.
At it.
That is in a way like a personal bias.
It's bias, but I'm saying I think that people in the Senate and the House of Representatives need to have situations where they flip sides, right? Something that the Republicans put forth. I think there should be Democrats that should vote for it. Well, not everything. I'm saying it depends on what the fuck. But what the topic is. But even if it's something that's reasonable on either side, they sit there and go, no, because a Republican put this forth or because a Democrat put this forth, I have to vote against it because I have to stick with my party. And I'm like, dude, that's just like, now we're going to get nothing fucking done.
And this goes into that whole thing, the whole sports analogy that you began with that brought us into this conversation to begin with. Like, people are
it's like my way or no, it's our way or no way.
I would die defending the St. Louis Blues. Like, that is my hockey team. That's the team from my city. Like, that's where I grew up. That's where I'm from. That's the team I love. Like, every other team, especially if you're a Chicago Blackhawk or a Colorado Avalanche fan, fuck you. Like, that's just how it is. That's how sports are. If you're passionate enough, that's how you feel about it. If you actually truly are like that into your team, it's hard to be like very neutral about sports because it becomes such a personal thing if you really attach yourself to it.
Off
and
topic.
It's for sure what's happening.
But did you know that sports fans were still as dedicated as they are like during the Roman times?
Yeah.
Like, they used to have yellow, like, I think it was called like the Yellows, the Blues, or the Reds. There was like 3 different teams, maybe the Greens. There were colors. They didn't have like team names. They just had color names, and you like repped, like, you and your family.
I could totally see
repped one, and they would get into like fucking like Romans would just get into fucking fist fights with people over like your team lost, fuck you, and then they would just start beating the shit out of each other.
It's important for people,
right?
Like and I've said this a few times on stream, and this is why like the 2-party system in a way is like really ineffective and flawed, because when you have 2 groups, not multiple, you have one and the other, you create this really hard psychological problem of in-group, out-group bias. This is a Psych 101 lesson. This is like day 1 psychology. We learn about this shit. When your group is opposed against another, you inherently disagree. Like, you immediately psychologically, like subconsciously, are like, I'm group X, therefore group Y bad because I'm group X, so I like group X. Group Y is not good, but group Y is over there saying the same thing about group X. And it creates this exact dilemma where like the Republican side is like, well, Democrats suck and we're the good guys. But then the Democrats are like, well, the Republicans suck and we're the good guys. So anytime the other side is proposing anything, they're like, well, that's the bad guy. I can't do that.
Yeah. Well,
Kamala and Biden proposed an extremely Republican-leaning border patrol bill when like right before the election, and Trump told the Republicans to shut it down so they didn't look good. Except it was an extremely like conservative-leaning bill in terms of how like it's punitive
and
like
that
behavior.
That bill's going to be minutely tweaked, re-represented, and then passed next election
as a Republican one.
Yeah, just so it gives them the credit, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I've always said that the two-party system is bad. I understand people being mad at people that vote third party this election.
Well, it's built to it's just set up to fail, unfortunately, in the way it's set up.
But we need a third party to get funding and get recognition. So there is a world where we have like a lot of Asian countries that are just having new elections right now have three parties, right? And they have something that's similar to the Republican Democrat.
Even just the creation of a third removes a lot of that in-group, out-group bias. I mean, it still exists, but it's in a three-way that makes it even more spread out.
Spread out, and then it's harder
to make those problems.
Them, right?
Yeah, it makes it harder to create that conflict.
Because it's like there could be three people talking in a room, and it's not going to be two Republicans or two Democrats and then one of the opposite. All three of you might literally support a different party, and then it's like, okay, let's discuss this, not let's fucking bicker at each other and argue in a unmature way,
but
to where we're not going to be able to focus and get anything done.
The unfortunate part is I think a lot of people want that, except the government politically is built to fail without two parties, because both parties want control. They just want to be in charge, and they don't want that other opportunity or multiple other parties to come in as a force.
But yes, I understand that, and that's why anybody in those two parties doesn't want that. But if you have a third party and those third party people start getting a House of Rep seat and a Senate seat, then we're going to start having bills that get put forth where there's going to be, hey, we have no idea who's going to win, right? Rather than it just being, oh, there's a Republican majority this time, this is always going to get passed, right?
Yeah.
Because they're just going to fucking vote this way.
But that's democracy. That's what democracy should be.
Yeah.
It's like there are so many differences that it's really hard to tell what ultimately like people want. Therefore, the majority is what gets is vocal.
Well, the other problem is, say there's three parties, the Electoral College doesn't really work very well if all three parties start getting...
Well, that shit's all fucked up and unnecessary anyway.
Yeah. Well, I agree the Electoral College is fucked up, but I don't think we should just give the win to the popular vote, right? Because
I think there would be a way to divvy it up better that isn't gerrymandering and used in a way to specifically target
where they separate counties and do all that.
Gerrymandering is a huge reason that it is bad, because it's separated in a way to cause these purposeful divisions in states between like rural and city that like make these divisions hard and blatant and makes it...
Oh, can you talk?
Did I?
Yeah, now you're good. Oh. No, I wasn't muted. I just couldn't hear you there for like 4 seconds. That was weird.
That's weird. But yeah, like gerrymandering makes these borders so blatant against like certain people and classes to like divide them up in a way to appeal to a certain political party, just so the power's still there. I mean, that's exactly the problem, is like they set it up. They set up all of this in a way to benefit themselves only. And they're in this like they're in this feud between themselves, but they're also in this agreement of like, we don't want anybody else in this we don't want anybody else with a seat at the table. So like, we're just going to yell at each other and people have to choose one or the other. And we don't want that like expansiveness or multitude of like opinion or person or party. We don't want that. We just want to yell at each other. So at least we're sort of in charge, or could be. there's a bit of a guarantee there. It's like a coin flip in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know the solution to that. I don't really think that in the near future. I'm hoping in our lifetime there's some sort of solution that's made for that, but do I think there will be a third party that gets reintroduced and actually works well in the near future? No.
I think there is a way to remove gerrymandering and make the Electoral College
work
effective in a much less manipulative fashion, for sure. Like it's totally manipulated to like lay out cities in terms of like ethnicity and income, and like purposely divide these lines to like make places more like right leaning on purpose, because they purposely like scope out this territory.
Well, the problem is
people they know will lean towards their politicals.
Well, I think the problem is neither party would vote for that.
Exactly. And that goes back to what I just said, where like they just want to
affects each of them.
They want to bicker, and like the feud is beneficial to them because both of them have theoretically the equal chance of keeping themselves in charge, and doing anything to encourage different parties or different people to vote separately from them doesn't benefit them whatsoever. All it does is benefit everybody besides the two predominant parties, and that's kind of like the problem. Is it's like totally set up to favor them only, and everything else is like either built to fail or just realistically won't be passable, because they're just gonna shut it down, because all it does is weaken their hold as one of the two powerhouses.
Yeah, and they wouldn't want to sacrifice that, even if it meant
they would rather yell till the death against the Republican Party than weaken their control.
Well, yeah, I think that just goes back to the selfishness of politics in general. So
absolutely.
I don't know.
I think
know if there's any solution there.
I really don't know either. I think ultimately, like, if you boil down like this election, Trump essentially rehashed what he did in 2016, because like 2016's biggest concern was immigration, right? Like, people were worried about the border. What he did, he said, I'm going to make a huge wall and Mexico pays for it, right? He went, I'm going to handle this. You don't have to worry about it, especially not monetarily. I'll figure that out. Vote for me and I'll figure it out. Now, did he figure it out? No. Mexico didn't pay for shit.
Yeah.
We paid for it. You paid for it. Yeah. The little bit of the wall he made that still doesn't actually do as much justice as he claimed it would. Not only did Mexico not pay for it, you did. So, but he employed the same strategy. This time, everybody's worried about expenditures and their money and the economy and their wallet. They're worried about their day-to-day spending, their weekly spending, their mortgage, their rent, or their groceries. They're worried about daily costs. And he went, I can fix that, and I'm going to make somebody else pay for it. He did the same thing. He literally did the exact same thing, where he went, this is your biggest concern. I can handle it. Also, other country pay for it. Now, the logic behind both of those don't make sense, and the first one didn't happen. And
why would Mexico ever agree to pay for fucking?
They just fucking wouldn't.
Multi-million-dollar.
They're just not going to do that. So I think like ultimately like that's kind of the problem, is like, not only did he just employ the same strategy and make these big vague promises towards people's largest concerns this time around, the Democratic Party employed the same strategy as well, where they like tried to like middle ground and be like, guys, you don't have to vote Republican, like we can do these things too. And it's like, ultimately, if you're in a building and that building is offering you food for free, hypothetically, but somebody across the street is like, hey, we got food for free, we can give you free food. Why
you don't have would you walk over?
You don't have a need to cross the street. You don't have a reason to go over there. And
I think it just comes down to marketing.
It just doesn't work. It hasn't worked. And to employ the same thing against the same thing, and to get embarrassingly like egged more than the first time. It's like, how do you not understand? Like, you have to do something else. Like, it's just not working. It's crazy to like see how bad it didn't work the first time and be like, maybe this time against the same guy. That's what baffles me. Is it's like it's not even like a different Republican incumbent. It is the same guy, the same exact dude did the same exact thing and just phrased it differently. And they were like, okay, this time we got it though.
Who do you think's gonna be the Republican nominee next election?
I don't know.
I feel like if the election goes well, it'll be J.D. Vance.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was about to say is like people are worried about Vance. Like, hypothetically, if Trump were to die at some point in office, people are worried about him taking over. But like, my hot take is like, he doesn't have, it goes back to this whole thing of you saying like Trump is a brand. He's not a brand.
J.D. Vance
He's just a guy, and he doesn't have that charisma that Trump brings about, or that Trump has mastered in his years of conning. Like, Vance is just some random politician who has minimal charisma, can posture politically enough to have his career, but he doesn't capture that essence that Trump does. So I'm convinced that like, if he were to take over or try to run, he's not going to have that same pull, because people are enamored by Trump and what they think he's able to do and accomplish. Well, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have a decade plus of just convincing people that he is a genius and he can do it. Like, he's just some random dude that I don't even know why they picked him. I don't even think they know why they picked him.
I'm curious to see 2028's both sides. Not even just if J.D. Vance goes, but also if I don't think in all honesty, I don't think Kamala's going to try and run again.
I don't think she should.
Yeah. I would love to see Pete Buttigieg as president. I've said that, but I don't think he would get the votes because he's a gay man. And I think a lot of people would vote against him.
Which sucks.
But because he's great at his job, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm pretty sure the head of the Department of Transportation, and he's just meticulously planned and has plan B, plan C for a lot of things where it's like, hey, this is what we need to get done. This is how we're going to get it done, rather than just like empty promises. Like, if Pete Buttigieg
which is what you want. That's what you want out of a politician.
Went up and said, hey, I'm going to get this, and this done when I'm a president, I would actually believe him, right? I wouldn't be like, okay, you're just telling me this.
This is another hot take as well, I guess. I'm convinced that the Democratic Party basically shooting Bernie Sanders out back in 2016 and not backing him caused 2 terms for Trump easily.
So you think Bernie could have won?
I think Bernie would have absolutely demolished him.
A lot of young people like Bernie.
And he absolutely decimates the Vermont vote every time he's up for Senate. Like, it's not even a question. He has people oppose him. It doesn't even matter. He just wins because Vermont loves him that much. He had the most singular home donations out of anybody back then. Like, you can look this up. The map of donations when they picked Biden, when they picked Clinton, it wasn't even close. Like, they weren't getting nearly anything compared to what he had. Like, he already had the recognition nationally. He had the financial backing nationally. He had the policies that younger voters want. He had all of that, and they were like, I don't think this is the direction. We got to go like towards the right. Because American left is not democratic.
Well, it's because they said he was a socialist.
They are a watered down Republican Party, because all of their stuff, all of their policies are desirable and attempted to like make appealing arguments towards Republicans.
But do you think that Bernie would have won if he took Hillary's place in 2016?
I think he had a really high chance.
I think he had a better chance. I don't think he would have won.
I think he had a better chance.
Yeah, I don't think he would have won.
You could argue he wouldn't have won because Trump would have captured the same magic, and he probably would have just laid on him being a socialist like he laid on Hillary, the way that he did against her with her, the way he slandered her. So I think you could argue that he wouldn't have won. I mean, I think that's a fair assumption considering the results of the actual election. I think he would have stood a much higher chance.
Yeah.
But I think even doing that and seeing the close results would have made the Democratic Party pivot harder, because they just don't pivot. They constantly like constantly turn towards the right media, trying to get these like flippant people, which is like fine in a way, but all of their policies and appealing, all of their arguments and promises appeal towards the right Republican ideologies in terms of immigration, in terms of all taxes and stuff like that. They're just becoming like a smaller version of the Republican Party. And like this goes back to my like, why would you cross the street when you already got food in the building you're in? Like that just doesn't, people just don't do that. Some people might, but not enough to like actually make a difference. And we've seen that twice now. The only reason Biden got away with the election is because people had the recency bias of seeing a Trump presidency. And a lot of people, if all of this, if not only that election, but the last one, or this one and the last one are totally valid in terms of how many people voted, it showed how many people were like, well, fuck that.
Yeah.
Because of that, like seeing what it was. People aren't seeing what that presidency was right now. We're seeing a different one. And like, that's just how it is. People are goes back to personal biases. People have so much recency bias that they can't even think backwards or forwards. I don't know, dude. It makes me want to just rant about this for so long, because I'm baffled by the fact that they employed the same strategy again.
Well, as last time, and knowing it wasn't going to work.
Yeah. I mean, I guess not technically last time, but like the time before, because I don't even, Biden and Trump's election was such a different monster of people just being like, well, fuck that.
Well,
that
was
awful.
Biden was just figurehead VP for Obama versus Trump, and people didn't like the 2016 to 2020 term.
Yeah.
So,
well, he was
Biden
meant to be the
Biden
2016.
just won by default.
He was meant to be 2016's candidate, but his son died, so he stepped off of his rallying. So I mean, like, there's all sorts of things at play here, but the 2020 election is so different because it was such a different, like, people had so many different concerns, and it was such like that was terrible. That like the idea of Kamala's campaign being like, we're not going back, is a great idea and makes sense, but people aren't thinking 4 years behind. They're thinking current. And they're being told like a lot of current things are bad and wrong, even if it's not true. They're not thinking about 4 years ago.
Well,
people don't even want to acknowledge COVID. Nobody wants to talk about COVID.
She was put in a bind because the shit that didn't go well this election, she can't just shit on her own party, right?
Yeah,
she
and
can't,
I can't even blame
VP go, hey, we did a bad job, because then they're going to be like, there's going to be some people that are like, yeah, you know, good shit, we're going to vote for you. But there's going to be other people that are like, why the fuck would I vote for you if you're shitting on yourself? If you're saying that you failed, why would I give you, you know, another go?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, I can't fault her. Yeah. I put the fault at her campaign and the people in charge of that, because
I think it's just all marketing.
I can't imagine having 100 days. Like, they totally screwed her up here, because Biden's whole thing was that he was a transitional president and he was meant to put America back in place and towards a great direction, and then pass the torch to somebody just as reasonable or like not like Trump, right? And then he was like, just kidding, I'm gonna run. And people are like, the fuck are you talking about? So you lied. And then he kept at it and went all the way until a couple of months prior, and was like, never mind.
After the first debate where he bombed. And then people were like, what the fuck? We can't have this guy run. And so then Kamala just kind of was like,
they give her an impossible task of trying to salvage an election.
They were like, all right, you have to go. Like, she might have not even wanted to have that.
It's entirely possible she didn't even want to do it. They were just like, you're the best option
you're the one
to take the torch.
You're our only option right now. You need to take this. So I don't know. But
I can't really fault her, because I imagine having that little time to find a way to make ground off of such like a unfortunate charismatic force that Trump is to people seems impossible. And it feels impossible for a lot of people, especially now. I mean, seeing the results.
Yeah.
And I imagine she leaned on a lot of Democratic figureheads who did exactly what I said earlier, just like sort of relied on the same stratagems as previous and totally, once again, egged their own face.
Yeah.
You know? So I can't exactly fault her. I think she did as best as she could. I think the argument that she ran a perfect campaign is a little ridiculous because, once again, I think the people running the campaign relied on the same strategies that failed 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, it's really hard. It's hard to like, I mean, everybody can find, I can find a million reasons why it went wrong. Recency bias, you know, everybody, hindsight bias. I mean, like we all look at things 10 minutes ago and go, oh, I could have said that better or could have done that better. Like, you'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do this for the rest of our life. We'll talk about this for the rest of our life because this is like, these are life-changing elections for a lot of us. And we'll discuss this moment in time historically.
You think you think we'll talk about this like 40 years from now?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Dude, this is what I think is the case. Trump is going to die someday, and he is this decade's Ronald Reagan. That's my hot take. People reveal Ronald Reagan as this massive, influential, positive force in America.
But Ronald Reagan,
he fucked our economy. He fucked
Ronald
a lot
Reagan
of people.
Swept. Like, if you look at I love looking at previous elections. Yeah. And I think now the country's even more divisive too because this, like, if you look at the Electoral College, and how it panned out in the United States every single election, there's a lot of states that are normally blue that flip red or were normally red.
Well, they've split it up so much more in so many other ways nowadays that it's even more. It's exactly it's more divisive.
But if you look at like Ronald Reagan, when did he run? Electoral College,
pre-Bush Senior, I think
1984.
Before Clinton.
He won every single state but Minnesota and DC,
which is crazy.
He had 525 electoral votes against Walter Mondale. I've never even heard of that guy.
Yeah, which the closest thing in our day and age is probably Bush's second term, Bush Jr., and Obama's too. And even then, neither of those are even
it wasn't even
close to that. Not even close.
Electoral map. I think it was like 19. I think Clinton did. I think Clinton had a sweep.
His was pretty dominant too.
He had a 370. He against George Bush. He had 370 in 92.
Yeah.
He won basically every state. Wow.
I didn't know he crushed that.
That's what I'm saying. It's just I always just, dude, literally there's this one website called like 270 to win, and
it pops off every election.
Even like just Jimmy Carter, who's still fucking kicking somehow. Like, Jimmy Carter only got 297 electoral votes as
people
a Democrat,
love Jimmy Carter,
but he won. Basically, he lost California and all of the West Coast, but basically won all of the East Coast. He won Texas. He won Florida. He won North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, like states that are just always red. And he won those. But now it's like, now if you look at it, like I think right around Bush and Obama is where it's like now states just go just stay one way, like every election. And I'm waiting for a presidential candidacy where we just have a full sweep. Like, I kind of want that.
Yeah. There's a bit of a silver lining there where it's like a lot changes within 4 years of an election. Mm-hmm. And we see that historically in the electoral colleges of the previous presidencies, like you just went down the list of. But it does seemingly get harder to even have those changes. And that goes back to like all the gerrymandering and the purposeful split of certain like areas to make sure they secure direct like electoral votes in those spots.
Yeah.
Which is like a whole different amount of like just
cringe.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I truly think that like we're going to have to deal with seeing like Trump hats rest of our life. It's like seeing your 70-year-old uncle have a Ronald Reagan shirt. Like,
I don't know.
Literally.
I don't think we're going to see Trump merch in like 20 years.
I would personally,
when he's dead,
I would love to not see it anymore.
Oh yeah.
But that's just the way I see it, because people are so obsessed with specifically him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I go for the argument of like JD Vance running, but it not working out, or him taking the position of president if something happens and it not working out as well, because he's not beloved by people for some odd reason. He's not like, people aren't obsessed with him for some
forgettable.
reason. He's just like a random politician, much like a lot of incumbents who don't win. It's like,
yeah.
What the hell is Mitt Romney up to? Mitt Romney has a clip every now and then that's like, what the fuck is my party doing? I'm disappointed. But like, what is he
Mitt
realistically
Romney would have
up
won.
to?
I'm pretty sure I'm genuine when I say I think Mitt Romney would have won if he wasn't a Mormon.
It's a fair take.
Just because I think religion and politics are still intertwined in voting, and I think a lot of other denominations of Christians don't like Mormons. And I think that he probably would have pulled a higher Protestant vote if he was also just Protestant, and then probably would have beat Obama.
Well, we're going back into personal bias.
Yeah.
When people think about religion, it's always the extreme. It's really hard for somebody to imagine a normal,
moderate
religious person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you imagine a Catholic, a Christian, a Muslim, etc., you just, maybe not out loud, maybe not intentionally, but subconsciously your mind thinks of that extreme. And regardless, that has an effect. Even if you don't like that or disagree or end up coming to a better conclusion, like, that still is what people end up going through in terms of their thought process. Like, especially with religion. Religion has that to a insane degree. Like, everybody views religion as an extreme, because in a lot of ways, in a lot of religions, it gets extreme. So, and that's what people like discuss and talk about and see and hear. You don't hear this. This is like the news and everything. You don't hear about good stuff. You don't hear about positivity on the news. You hear about bad shit, because
bad stuff gets clicks.
People are magnetized to bad shit. That's what gets them to look at it and think about it and read about it and watch it. Like, you're not going to hear about like the good things Mormon societies do, or replace with whatever religion. You can find that, but you're not being told that. Like, the outlets that like post the opposite rhetoric aren't going to post positive rhetoric when it's actually happening, because that's not how it works. That's not how they benefit.
Yeah. Well, do you have any other words that you want to say? I feel like we've
I don't know, dude.
A lot.
I guess if like my whole thing is like, I worry about a lot of young men. I think that, like, once again, we are in a really hard day and age for everybody. And I feel like the Republican Party really took advantage of a lot of insecurities, especially within men. I mean, you see it in those polls. And it's really, unfortunately, easy to pull those strings. And they really, really pulled them this time. And like, regardless of the dynamic of social structure and everything, you still, like, you can't leave somebody behind. That's the whole thing. That's like what people want, is the social hierarchy is like a white guy is on top. And whether that's not, that shouldn't be. Everybody should be equal. And the goal is pulling everybody up. But like, to do that without being like, but you're staying, like, we're all just going to come up to the same level and chill. And we all get to have all the same things that are good and exciting and deserved. To not like emphasize that point is a huge missed opportunity, because you just allow right-wing media and stuff to be like, see, they're getting rid of you.
They're gonna pull you down.
They're gonna get rid of you.
Yeah.
Like your life is ending. Exactly. Like it emphasizes those points because they don't appeal. The Democratic Party did not appeal to the young male vote because ultimately, once again, they focused on people who arguably deserve a lot more attention and policy to go into their favor. And I get that, but to not appeal in any way just opens the doors to make them be appealed to the opposite. Exactly. So I don't know. I want like young men listening who might still be listening, who haven't been like upset or annoyed at the stuff we're saying. Like, you're going to be fine, dude. Like, we are two like young adult men who like are deliberately trying to tell you you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like I have a wife and a kid and I love them to death. And like, that wasn't for no reason. Like, I didn't get that for no reason. I worked to get that. And like, I am grateful for that every day. And in my opinion, I would sacrifice everything to have my wife and my daughter feel more safe in this world. I feel like, in my opinion, that is the absolute definitive idea of a man. Like, if we're going stereotypical male, in general,
being there,
stereotypical protector, putting everything that you have to the side to make the people you care about's life better, is like the absolute good, like, ideal, in my opinion. Like, I don't have to, like, I love this job. My job is amazing to me, but like, a lot of the success and the want to succeed comes from the idea of the more successful I am, the more I can take care of my wife and daughter. That's where it comes from for me. And like, to me, that is what is to be a man. That's what it means to me. Like, I can't imagine having voted against my wife's
core rights,
bodily autonomy. And my daughter's. My daughter is going to get at a day and age where she might want to have kids. I want her to be able to make that decision. I feel like looking out for the people I care about the most, especially ones who have a lesser voice than mine, just based off of how everything is structured, is like
what you should
ultimately what you should do. And like, I just want like more men to hear that, because that's not what's being taught or being told. The opposite's being told, where like, we're meant to be like, bootstrap, get over it, don't talk about it. Figure it out, worry about yourself. Nobody gives a shit about you. It's just not true. I don't know.
Well, I think you basically encompassed all of it. Like, that's, I mean, I've talked to Brooke about this as well. Most of the people know that my girlfriend's, I would say, even more liberal than I am, in the sense of how especially she voices herself. And regardless of everything, people always ask me, like, because I've talked about this on stream before. I make a good salary, right? Like, I'm a Twitch streamer. I have a fairly successful YouTube channel. I will make more money under Trump, right? And people go, well, why wouldn't you vote for Trump? And it's not just about money, right? Like, a lot of it's social values. And even if I wasn't dating Brooke, I still see the social.
You still care about.
I care more about
people.
What they push on the Democratic side, societally and sociology wise, comparable to what the Republican Party seems, in my mind, to be oppressing from other people, right? So
I agree. Yeah, I think that like, a lot of people are we're very selfish for this election, and like, there's understandable logic as to why, because like, why wouldn't you be concerned about how much you're spending? But to singularly to put that into the singular issue and not understand how much more is threatened by the outcome of this, and to not care about other people, I mean, that is like shameful, in my opinion. That is the exact opposite. If you are a like excuse me, I burped. If you are in any way like thinking you need to be some ideal male, the best man you can be, to vote against so many other people's interests because you're so worried about your own is like the exact opposite of being a man. That is a shameful, like sad thing to have done, if you ask me. Well, if you get upset about it, like, I'm sorry, but like, that's just how I feel.
Yeah. I was gonna say, to wrap up like my thoughts on it in general, I think that yes, as somebody that is voting in the United States, you should be voting for your own personal values, but at the same time, you need to be focused on what is going to bring up other people, even if it might not help you instantly, because in a society, regardless of whether or not you're reaping the rewards initially, if you're helping other people and the broad majority is doing better now because of your vote, that is in turn also going to help you. It's not something where you're just saying, oh, I'm going to sacrifice
there
this
isn't
and vote
limited
for them
space.
and it's going to fuck me over. No, it's going to help both people because those people need the help more in this individual moment, and then everybody else all around is going to do better, right? It's going to be more utopia-like. At the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, if you vote for the Democratic Party, the U.S. is going to be a utopia. But I'm saying there's going to be more equality and more value for everybody rather than just like, hey.
There's a bigger chance they fight for other people that deserve also a seat at the table. Like, if you're in a position like ours and like that's – and it like if you were born into a position like this and like you don't fight for people that like don't get that privilege, like I don't know what to tell you, man. Like you're just going about it wrong, and I hate that. I hate that for people. I hate that like a lot of men especially have been tricked into this idea that we're just like being attacked and like taken out back and like shot or whatever. Like whatever metaphor you want to come up with, it's just like it's really just not the case. Like you've been put in such a point of privilege just by being born the way you are, like, and how society is built around it, that like you realistically don't need to fight. That's a huge point that I make and still make. Like a white guy had an option here, like easily, realistically, they had the option to vote here. They had the option to not vote because their life really doesn't change a whole lot here. Like, and it's the same, like you said, like our technically like our lives as streamers will probably benefit in a way from him being in charge and helping out. Yeah. But that's not what I care about. I would spend all of my money, all of it. It would be all gone if it meant making my family safer or better or less worried, like all of it. I would tap out my bank account and I would not even blink twice about it. Every time.
If it ensured their
safety and security,
and value.
I would do it every time. And it is baffling that some people don't see it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't really know what else there could be done outside trying to reason with people. At the end of the day, it's still just going to be their decision. It's whatever they make. So, yeah, I really have to pee.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of me saying.
I think this is a good stopping point. We've kind of like made our points and yeah, this was great.
Well, if anybody, is still watching, appreciate you for sticking around. Listening to me and Sneeg yap for 2 hours. So.
Listening to two white guys talk about politics.
Yeah, for an extended period of time. And aliens.
I think it's kind of important. It's important to have, like, what sucks is, like, a white guy making a podcast about politics is, like, I see it kind of as, like, important. I don't know. I don't want to, like, flatter ourselves, but at the same time, it's, like, us talking about something like this in a way of, like, we care about other people is important because the opposite is being pushed where like there's white guys talking about politics in a very malicious and like fear-mongering way, and like I do like the idea of trying to contribute in some way to push against that, because I just disagree with a lot of these like male ideologies being pushed, because that's just not how I was raised. Like I was raised to just give a shit about everybody besides me as much as possible, and to a degree that is not harmful to myself, but not going to change my life. Like, but could change somebody else's for the better permanently. That is the ideal for me. So I like the idea of trying to be like a more positive voice for people who might need to hear it personally.
For sure. I don't really have anything else to say.
Okay.
I'm really bad at wrapping things up.
If you're still listening, we would love to have you comment.
Oh yeah.
Either discussing certain points or asking certain questions, because something we want to do more is have like a few questions to sort of talk about, even personal or hypothetical, whatever. Like it could be as ridiculous or as personal. Well, maybe not as personal as possible, because I'm not going to answer some stuff, but as ridiculous as you could make it, but also like maybe it's just a good discussion of a current event or something you're worried about, you know.
Or just other topics you want us to talk about in future podcasts as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, thank you to tuning in for the second episode in 5 months of Time Wasters. So,
oops.
Yeah.
We'll see you in 5.
Yeah. See you in another 5 months.
Bye-bye.